العلم أشراف مطلوب وطالبه لله أكرام من يمشي على قدمه. العلم نور مبين يستضيء به أهل السعادات والجهال في الظلم.
طيب, last week where did we leave off? Who knows where we left off? أحكام الوضعية. Exactly what point though? الفاسد. What is الصحيح? Let me see. What is صحيح? نعم. عليه شرعا. فاسد. لحظة. One by one. So Fasid goes to the sisters. What is Fasid? شرعا. صح. That which the effects of it don't take place شرعا. السبب إخواني.
وصف ظاهر منضبط جعله الشارع علامة على مسلم.
طيب, أي علامة. نعم. A ظاهر, an apparent sign that Allah Jalla wa Ala has placed as a sign for something else. Shagd, sisters. What is a shagd? ما يلزم من عدمه العدم. وجود أو عدم لذاته. ما يلزم من عدمه عدم الحكم ولا وجود الحكم ولا عدم لذاته. طيب, المانع. لحظة, مانع. Prevention. نعم. Prevention, the تعريف of it. ولا يلزم من عدمه وجود ولا عدم لذاته. طيب, العلة. The sisters should know علة. We've studied it so many times. وصف ظاهر منضبط يلزم من وجوده وجود الحكم. يلزم من وجوده عدم الحكم. وجود الحكم. الحكم يدور مع العلة وجودا وعدما. طيب, فاسد. الفاسد لغة الذهاب ضياعا وخسرانا أو خسرا. Something that is wasted. Something that is corrupt. That is what a fasid is. اصطلاحا. That's what it means. عفوا, لغة. واصطلاحا, it is ما لا تترتب آثار فعله عليه. It is that which the traces of it and the effects of it do not actually take place. عبادة كان أم عقدا. Whether it's a عبادة or a عقد. Whether it's a عبادة or a عقد. فالفاسد من العبادات. So the Shaykh is now going to mention some of the examples or some examples. So he says فالفاسد من العبادات. The fasid from the عبادات is لا تبرأ به الذمة. ما لا تبرأ به الذمة. That which the responsibility or the person's conscience is not clear. Meaning that responsibility is upon them. The burden of responsibility is there. ولا يسقط به الطلب. And the command of them committing this action or the command of them meeting this action is still there. It is still present. طيب. مثلا كالصلاة, the Sheikh says قبل وقتها. الصلاة, it is wajib, صح? طيب. For as long as you haven't prayed, the burden of responsibility is on you, صح? And that command is there, صح? طيب. If you pray Isha now, so we know that if you're alive inshallah during Isha time, Salah is wajib upon you. If you pray Isha now and you've done the action, does the burden of responsibility get lifted? Does the command get removed? La. Why? Ibadatun fasida. That ibadah, that salah is fasid. It is not sound, the Shaykh says. وَالْفَاسِدُ مِنَ الْعُقُودِ وَالْفَاسِدُ مِنَ الْعُقُودِ طيب. And so that example, مثلا paying zakah before its time. Paying zakah, مثلا zakatul fitr, we pay at the end of Ramadan. مثلا if the person says, I'm going to pay zakatul fitr from day one, or I'm going to pay zakatul fitr in Shawwal, or Sha'ban, before or after Ramadan. No, that's fasid. Or praying the salah before its time. The Shaykh says, وَالْفَاسِدُ مِنَ الْعُقُودِ, and from the uqud, when it comes to uqud that we're doing now, kitab al-biyu' or biyu', when it comes to contracts, مَا لَا تَرَتَّبُ آثَارُهُ عَلَيْهِ, that which the effects of or the traces of the aqd normally do not take place. For example, buying an item that is majhul, selling an item to someone that is majhul. You don't know whether you're going to find it or not. Mathalan, I'm going to sell you the phone that is in my pocket, and there's about 3 phones. Or I'm going to sell you the phone that is in my shop. Maybe there's about 10 phones in the shop, or 100 phones. Is that permissible? That sort of transaction is not permissible. طيب? That goes back to the last masala that we were talking about. That transaction is not permissible. Why? Because there's jahala. There is jahala. The example that they say, for example, if someone sells, he says, my servant, my slave, who ran away last week, I'm going to sell him to you, sell him now. If you find him, you find him. If you don't, قَدَرَ اللَّهُ مَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. Is that transaction permissible? That is called aqdun fasid. Do you see the connection between usul al-fiqh and fiqh? Al-aqd fasid. We've been studying these uqud. These uqud that we've been studying in the class, the Shaykh is now telling us they're called aqdun fasid, or aqdun sahih, a aqd which is sahih, or a aqd which is fasid. وَكُلُّ فَاسِدٍ مِّنَ الْعِبَادَاتِ, and every fasid from the ibadat, every act that is fasid or corrupt from the ibadat, وَالْعُقُود, and from the contracts, وَالشُّرُوط, and in terms of its fasid, in terms of the conditions that have been placed, and that is not a condition that is permissible, فَإِنَّهُ مُحَرَّمٌ, then it is haram. Every action that is, مثلا, praying salah without wudu, is that permissible? La, it is haram. Also placing a condition that is, مثلا nikah. A man says, I'm going to marry you on the condition I don't give you your meher. Is that permissible? La, that is fasid. Or min al-uqud. I'm going to sell an item that has a defect. Or I'm going to sell, مثلا, you sell an item and you overcharge the person. Although it's not fasid immediately, lakin that aqd is what? Muharram. The Shaykh says, what? فَإِنَّهُ muharram. ذلك لأن ذلك من التعدي من حدود الله أو تعدي حدود الله واتخاذ آياته هزوا. تعدي حدود الله واتخاذ آياته هزوا ولأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنكر من اشترطوا شروطا ليست في كتاب الله. In this line, the Shaykh says, rahimahullah, it is impermissible for 3 reasons. That is ta'addi min hududillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is transgressing against the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the boundaries of Allah and the limits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. طيب? And Allah says, وَمَا يَعْصِ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولَهُ وَيَتَعَدَّ حُدُودَهُ يُدْخِلْهُ نَارًا خَالِدًا فِيهَا وَلَهُ عَذَابٌ مُهِينٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, whoever disobeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger and goes past the limits and transgresses the limits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will enter him into the fire. So that's the first thing that the Shaykh says, rahimahullah. Also, it is making a mockery and jest out of the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, praying without wudu. Why would someone want to do that? Praying without wudu. Then it's a type of mockery. Allah says, وَلَا تَتَّخِذُوا آيَاتِ اللَّهِ هُزُوًا. Do not take the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as mockery. The third thing that the Shaykh says, وَلِأَنَّ النَّبِيَّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم أَنْكَرَ عَلَى مَنْ اشْتَرَطُوا شُرُوطًا لَيْسَتْ فِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he rebuked and refuted those who placed conditions that were not from the conditions, or that were not proper or sound or correct conditions. So that is a person that is doing an act that is not permissible, that is muharram, that is not from the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is not from the command of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. طيب. والفاسد والباطل بمعنى واحد إلا في موضعين. The Shaykh is now talking about two terminologies that are similar. Al-Fasid and Al-Batil. Is there a difference between the two? Something which is Fasid and something which is Batil. Without looking at the book.
The one who's Fasid is sinning, the one who's Batil is just incorrect.
The one that says the aqd that is Fasid, the person is sinning. The aqd that is Batil, the person is not sinning. طيب نحضر.
Deficiencies in the ibadah or the dealing.
So fasid is deficiency within the ibadah or the dealing.
And then batil completely nullifies it altogether.
The batil, طيب, nullifies it completely.
They mean the same thing in some 2 places.
Okay, طيب.
Fasid is something that becomes fasid from the start of the ibadah or the contract. So it's standing.
Fasid is something which is impermissible from the start of the contract.
Batil is as it goes, something nullifies it.
Wallahi, that could be, yeah, you're right. that could be. That could be. But more often than not, they're the same. They're used in the same. طيب. According to the Jumhur al-Ulama, the majority of the scholars, the Hanabila, the Malikiyya, the Hanabila, and the Shafi'iyya, or in order, the Malikiyya, the Shafi'iyya, and the Hanabila, Fasid and Batil are exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing, except for in 2 situations. Is that understood? So according to the men, the Malikiyya, the Shafi'iyya, and the Hanabila, the Jumhur al-Ulama, Fasid and Batil بمعنى واحد, as the Shaykh says, rahimahullah. إلا في موضعين, except for 2 places. Except in 2 scenarios or 2 situations. The first, the Shaykh says, الأول في الإحرام. The very first is in Ihram. فرقوا بينهما. They differentiated between the Fasid and the Batil. بأن الفاسد, so they described the Fasid to be ما وطئ فيه أو ما وطئ فيه المحرم قبل تحلل الأول. So they call Fasid. Who remembers what تحلل الأول is and تحلل الثاني? Or is that أساطير الأولين? Old folks tell. Huh?
It's after you've done the...
Yeah. Oh, okay. After you've done how many things?
2.
Huh?
Shaving your head and throwing the stone.
No, shaving your head, throwing the stones, or Tawaf al-Ifada. Or Tawaf al-Ifada. So Tahallul al-Awwal is a person falling into intercourse before Tahallul al-Awwal. مثلا in Arafah. What is the ruling of the person's Hajj? Fasid. طيب. It is Fasid, it is not correct. What else? He has to feed how many? 60 people. Is that he has to feed 60 people. Allah yahdik. يعني it was recently, يعني Hajj. Allah, it was recent when we studied.
He has to repeat the Hajj in front of him.
He has to repeat the Hajj. طيب.
He has to separate his wife.
Divorced.
No, separate.
Okay, same vicinity. طيب. He has to carry on with the Hajj. He has to continue with the Hajj. So, he sacrifices a camel as well. But he has to what? Continue with the Hajj. طيب. صيام 60 يوم. طيب. نعم, he has to continue with the Hajj. طيب. The Shaykh says, وَالْبَاطِلُ مَغْتَدَّ فِيهِ عَنِ الْإِسْلَامِ. As for batil, it is that which the person apostates from Islam, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from it. It is where the person apostates. It is where the person apostates. So there's a difference in Babul Hajj. So Hajjun Fasid means what? The Hajj is Fasid, lakin the rulings are still pertaining to that person. The rulings of Hajj still apply to him. As for batil, if a person leaves the religion, wal-'iyadu billah, actually he doesn't need to slaughter a camel or sacrifice a camel. And he doesn't need to carry on with it. He shouldn't carry on. Because there's something far greater than that, which is what? Kufr. he has left the fold of Islam. So what should he do? He should come back. طيب. الثاني في النكاح. And the second place that the scholars differentiate between الفاسد and باطل is what? النكاح. فرقوا بينهما بأن الفاسد ما اختلف العلماء في فساده. الفاسد, النكاح فاسد is that which the scholars differ over whether it is sound or not sound. في فساده كالنكاح بلا ولي أو كالنكاح بلا ولي. So nikah bila wali, some scholars say يعني al-wali is the person, is the guardian of the woman. So the scholars, the jumhur al-ulama, the majority of scholars, they from the conditions of nikah is that there's a wali that is present to give away, a guardian there to give away the sister or the daughter, whoever it may be, whoever the guardian may be. Jumhur al-ulama are on that opinion. However, the Hanafiya, they say what? It is not a condition. It is not a condition that he is there immediately. Lakin later on, he has the option to, if he doesn't like him and he feels that this person is not suitable for her, then he can still cancel that out. So even the Hanafiya don't automatically just say you can get married without a wali. But a lot of people don't pay attention to that. طيب. So that is called nikah. What? If a person decides to get married without a wali, that nikah is what? That nikah is fasid. That nikah is fasid. Why did they say fasid? So sorry, go back to the last example of Hajj. Which is worse, batil or fasid? Batil is worse. Excellent. Bring that to this example as well. The nikah bila wali, the nikah without wali, they say it is what? Fasid. Why do they say it is fasid and not batil? Because there are scholars that believe that it is correct. There are scholars that believe it is correct. So because of that, we can't call it batil. But we'll call it fasid. We'll call it fasid. طيب. فرقوا بينهما فاختلفوا. والباطل, as for the batil, طيب. So مثلا, if a person gets married not knowing the ruling and he's a Hanafi or he's grown up in a Hanafi environment, bi'ah, and he gets married without the wali, is that zina what he's falling into? La. What if a person knows that there's a condition or the condition of a wali is there and it is wajib, and then he decides to get married without a wali? What is he falling into? Zina. لماذا؟ لأن he knows the ruling. طيب. والباطل ما أجمعوا على بطلانه. And batil is that which there's a consensus amongst them that it is batil. It is not permissible. They all know that it is not permissible. لماذا؟ مثلا كالنكاح المعتدة. كالنكاح المعتدة. So for example, a person marrying a woman that's in her iddah. If a man divorces his wife, there's a waiting period, صح? 3 haids or 3 tuhur, whatever you want to call it. طيب? Let's say 3 months. Those 3 months, she's still his what? Wife. That woman is called a mu'tadda. So marrying that woman is batil. Then if a man comes and marries that woman, that aqd is aqd that is batil. Why? Because at the very essence of it, it is haram anyway. It is haram. Is understood? It is haram. مثلا, a person marrying his female relatives, mother and sisters and so on, عياذ بالله. That is called aqd. Fasid or batil? Batil. It is something which is an aqd that is batil. And what is the difference? The difference is that the aqd that is fasid, there's still meher connected. Sadaq, dawri. He still has to divorce her. And there still is an iddah period. Like with the fasid, there is no divorce. Because aslan it is fasid anyway. It is fasid. Afwan, aslan it is batil anyway. It is batil anyway. So there's no waiting period or anything like that.
Fasid nikah and hadith so is that word batil, is that a shar'an meaning istilahan?
لا, shar'an. That is the meaning shar'an, meaning it is invalid. And that's the important point that Babu Ismail mentioned. In the Sharia, you'll find terminology and you'll find the same word being used in the terminology of the scholars. مثلا al-karaha. Al-karaha in the Quran and in the wordings of the Salaf was what is considered haram. What was considered haram. Allah says in Surah, كُلُّ ذَلِكَ كَانَ مَكْرُوهًا. Allah says makruh, صح? Makruh. Like, what does Allah mention? قتل نفس, zina, fawahish, and so on, صح? So we can't say these are makruh. Lakin in the istilah of the ulama, after the first several generations, makruh is that which is disliked, صح? So we can't, when we're, and batil, same situation in the batil. فَالنِّكَاحُ وَهَا batil, 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 صح? That's what the Messenger said. We can't say that this has the same terminology. Although batil here is the same anyway. Lakin the scholars of the Hanafiya won't agree with that. They won't agree with that, and they'll say the hadith is weak. طيب. The Jumhur, they differentiate between batil and fasid, صح? The Jumhur, they differentiate between batil and fasid. Is this correct? No. The same. Except for how many situations? 2. طيب. What are they? Hajj and nikah. Hajj before what? Tahallul awwal is called fasid. And if a person irtadda, apostates, then it is called hajj batil. Nikah. Bidun wali is fasid. And nikah al-mu'tadda or aqarib is now considered is a nikah aqda is batil. طيب.
Would that be for anything that's min asli is batil, like for example?
لا, come into that. طيب. لكن the Hanafiya, they differentiate between. Khali, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. We'll study another time, inshallah. Al-ilm. And the next masala. طيب العلم. Read those out, but at the end where it says علم جهل علم, right at the end of the bab, he's علم جهل بسيط جهل مركب ظن وهم شك. طيب. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The Shaykh rahimahullah, in this section, he talks about al-ilm. Al-ilm, when he was describing معرفة الأحكام الشرعية, what was fiqh? معرفة الأحكام الشرعية, صح? معرفة, knowing, صح? That knowing is of different levels. That knowing, al-ilm, or ma'rifatul ahkam al-shari'iyya, knowing the ahkam of the sharia. We have to know that, or the reason why the scholars talk about this chapter is because this knowing is not on the same level. This knowledge, if a person knows something, the level of knowledge they have on that can differ. Mathalan, if I say to you, there's someone outside. If I'm outside and I'm walking inside and I see someone at the door, just outside the door, I see that person. And then I come in to the hall and I say to you, there's someone outside. The way I know it and the way you know it, is it the same? La. I know it first hand, you know it second hand. The Shaykh is going to talk about these terminologies, okay? And this is a quick overview. Ilm is when you know something. Ilm is when you know something. For example, I say to you, mention 2 conditions for the salah. 2 conditions from the salah, sisters. 2 conditions from the salah. Covering the awrah and Islam. 2 conditions of salah. Islam and satr al-awrah. So I say she has ilm of this thing. That person has ilm of it. What day is it today? Saturday. So you have ilm of that item, of that whatever it was that I asked you. The knowledge, the question that I asked you, you know the answer to it. So that is called ilm. Jahlun basit. I say to you, what are the conditions of salah? You say, Wallahi la adri. La adri, I don't know. That is called jahl basit. He doesn't know and he doesn't even bother trying. And he doesn't bother lying either. Just says, Allahu a'lam, I don't know. That is called jahlun basit. It's simple ignorance. Okay? Jahlun murakkab, that is a mean, believe it or not. Jahlun murakkab. Okay. Jahl murakkab is when I say to you, Abdullah, mention 2 conditions of the salah. Or I say to you, مثلا, where did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or where was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when the revelation came down? You said, of course, he was in London when the revelation came down. Or you say, no, he was in Rome when the revelation came down. That is called jahil murakkab. Jahil murakkab. Why is it called jahil murakkab? Because firstly, he doesn't know. Tagakib, yani, is something on top of one. Compounded ignorance, they call it. So it's ignorance upon ignorance. Dhulumatun fawquha dhulumat. So he's ignorant, he doesn't know, but he thinks he knows. So he says, of course, he was in Rome. Is that the correct answer? La. So it's the wrong answer. But what is worse than that is what? He thinks it's the right answer. That's what makes it worse. Right? The fact that he thinks it is, knows the answer. So that is jahl murakkab. Dhann. Dhann is when you have a strong assumption on something. So there's dhannu rajih. There's dhann. I think. Dhann. So for example, there's I say to Abdullah, did this take place? He goes, well, I adhun. Did something happen earlier on? I think something happened. So he thinks that took place. He's not jahil basid, he didn't say Allahu a'lam. And jahl murakkab, he's not, because he didn't give an answer that was wrong. Like he said, the possibility is that it did take place. So for example, these 3, مثلا, from a scale of 100. So dhann, for example, I'm 80% sure. I'm about 70% sure that took place. So that is dhann. If it was 100, it would be what? It would be ilm. But the fact that it's about 70 or 80, then it shows that it is a dhann, it is a possibility. It has a strong assumption. Wahm is the total opposite. Wahm is the total opposite. Where a person I say to him, and when's the bank holiday? When is the bank holiday anyway? Sometime next week, sir? Thursday, Friday. So he says, when's the bank holiday? I say, yeah, Monday. Monday's the bank holiday. That's a wahm. ممكن ماذا؟ لا mistake. It's just a mistake. It's a wahm. He thought. وهمت. مثلا the messenger, how many khulafa ar-rashidun were there? Well, I don't know. 5. It is a wahm, it is a possibility. Not jahil murakkab, like he makes a mistake. It's a mistake on his behalf. So he knows the answer, like it's a mistake on his behalf. طيب. So that's like what? 20% or 30%. طيب. Shak, a doubt. A doubt is what? I ask Abdullah something, and he says, well, I don't know, it could be this or it could be that. That is what? 50. Allahu A'lam. That is a shak. He has a doubt. Is it this or is it that? When you have a doubt, مثلا, you're in salah, you're not sure whether you've prayed 3 or 4. That is a shak. Like if you've prayed 3 and then you say, if you've prayed 3 and then you think you've prayed 2, that is what? Wahm. It's a mistake. That is wahm. That is one aspect of how the Shaykh divides al-idrak, knowing. Okay? The second way the Shaykh is going to describe it, or he's going to look at it from a different angle. اعتبار آخر. اعتبار. Who remembers that word? اعتبار آخر. From a different angle. And this is important for the student to know. For example, if I say, all of the students with a hat on, stand over there. And all of the students without a hat on, stand over there. Obviously, the students are going to be divided into how many groups? 2, sah? طيب. If I say all of the students that are married go onto that side, and the students that are not married go onto that side, they're going to be divided into how many groups? 2. Are the people that were there, they're going to be in the same groups? The people that were standing there initially with the hats on and with the hats on, when I split them into who's married and who's not, are they going to be the exact same people? La. It's from a different angle that we're looking at. So this is a different angle. The angle that we're looking at is ad-daruri or an-nadhari. Okay, we're going to get to this in the book, inshallah. Daruri is that knowledge that you're forced to believe in. You can't deny it. You can't deny it. There's no possibility of you saying the opposite. For example, this room and this hall and this center, which is bigger? The center's bigger. Is it rocket science? Do you need to think about that? No, of course you don't. The fact that your father's older than you, do you need to think about it? Let me see when my dad's date of birth was, and my date of birth was, so my dad's older. لا, علم ضروري, يعني you're forced to believe it, even though you may not have seen it. مثلا, Makkah exists. If you've never been to Makkah, even the kuffar, do they have a doubt that Makkah exists? Although some of them say, I'd love to see a masjid built in Makkah. طيب. New York, many of us probably have never been there. Inshallah, we'll never go there. Lakin, do we have a doubt that it exists? لا. That is ilm ضروري, يعني that is something that it forces itself upon you. Lakin ilm al-nadhari is that knowledge that you need to think about. Remember earlier on when we said what is a fifth of 60,000? We had to look in the computer. We had to look at the calculator, sah? So the brother was a mathematician. That's why he was able to work it out. Like for the majority of us, we had to what? Think about it, sah? Right. So another is that knowledge that you have to think about. You won't know immediately. Like shurud al-salah. You're not forced to know what the shurud al-salah are there. You may not know. Sah? طيب. Is that understood? Khalas, you've understood the bab. Nothing else. The Shaykh obviously is going to talk about the ta'rif and so on. And he's going to say this excludes this and this excludes that. Lakin, all we need to do now is read it. All we need to do is read al-ilm. The Shaykh says, al-ilm ta'rifuhu, the ta'rif or the definition of knowledge is idraku shay, knowing something and having the right perception of it, ala ma huwa alayhi, in how it really is. Knowing it how it is. Idrakan jaziman, firmly being aware of it and having knowledge of it. And there's no room for doubt. Ka-idraki, just like you know, أن الكل, that a whole object, أكبر من الجزء, that the whole object is bigger than a part of that object. طيب? For example, your body and your finger, which one is bigger, your body or your finger? Your body is bigger. طيب. And you know that, صح? That is called ilm. وأن النية شرط في العبادة, and that the niyyah is a condition for the ibadah. That is ilm. فخرج بقولنا إدراك الشيء. So when we said إدراك الشيء, which is the beginning of the ta'rif, that excludes عدم الإدراك بالكلية. It excludes not knowing in totality. You just don't know. ويسمى الجهل البسيط, and it is called جهل بسيط, simple ignorance. يعني simple ignorance. مثل يسأل, for example, a person is asked, متى كانت غزوة بدر? When did the battle of Badr take place? فيقول لا أدري, I don't know. That is called what? جهل بسيط. جاهل بسيط. Simple ignorance. وخرج بقولنا على ما هو عليه, in the definition, على ما هو عليه, in exactly how it is. Knowing something how it really is. What does that exclude? إدراكه على وجه يخالف ما هو عليه. It excludes knowing something in the opposite way, knowing something in other than how it is. ويسمى الجهل المركب, and that is called compounded or ignorance above ignorance. مثل أن يسأل. For example, if a person is asked, متى كانت غزوة بدر? When was غزوة البدر? And he says, في السنة الثالثة من الهجرة. It was in the 3rd year of the hijrah. When was غزوة البدر? The 2nd year. And he says what? في السنة الثالثة. He says it's the 3rd one. So where's the problem? He doesn't know, but he gave the wrong perception as well. He told it to us in a wrong way. Instead of saying لا أدري, he gave us an answer, and the answer contradicts the reality, which is that it took place in the 2nd year. وخرج بقولنا. As for when we say إدراكا جازما, now he's talking about the definitions, huh? So don't get lost. He's talking about the definition, and with the definition of ilm, we're able to find all of these. طيب. وخرج بقولنا إدراكا جازما, where he says a firm knowing, firmly knowing this thing. What does it exclude? It excludes إدراك الشيء, knowing something, having knowledge of something, إدراكا غير جازم, in a non-assertive way, in a way which you're not sure about. So you know this, but you're not 100% sure. بحيث يحتمل عنده, to the extent that it is possible with him, أن يكون على الوجه الذي أدركه. It is possible that he knows it in a way that is correct. فلا يسمى ذلك علما. لكن you don't call it knowledge. For example, if I say to you, any مسألة in fiqh, give me a مسألة in fiqh. Eating camel's meat, does it break your wudu? Eating camel's meat, does it break your wudu? And you say, Allahu a'lam, but yeah, let's just say it does. Let's say it does. طيب. So he says to you what? It does, right? He's not sure of it. But that is the reality though. It does break your wudu, صح? طيب. So he's right. But can we call it knowledge, what he just told us? Does he have knowledge of it? Why not? It was guesswork. Huh? It's not absolute. It is like, it was guesswork. Huh? No, not shak. He told you the correct answer, but that can't be called knowledge because it was a guess. It was trial and error. Huh? Dhan, it is coming. Dhan is coming. Dhan is coming. Lakin that is not called knowledge, number one. ثم إن ترجح عنده أحد الاحتمالين. Lakin if he prefers one of the two possibilities. So he's faced with a situation that has two possibilities. So something can be sunnah or mustahab. But he thinks it is sunnah. If it's mustahab or wajib. They're the two opposites, right? Wajib or mustahab. He has a so we say to him, salah. What is the ruling on salah? He says, wallahi, it could be mustahab, salat al-zuhr for example. It could be mustahab or it could be wajib. However, I believe it is wajib. I believe it is wajib. That is what? Dhan. That is done. He believes it is wajib. He's about 80-70% sure. The Shaykh says what? فَرَاجِحُ الظَّنِّ. So whatever side he leans towards, then that is called dhan. That is called dhan. And what did he lean towards? That it was wajib or that it was sunnah? He leaned towards it being wajib. So that is dhan. Can we call it knowledge? La, it's dhan. It is an assumption. A high assumption that he has or something. وَالْمَرْجُوحُ. And the marjuh, the one that is the weaker one, is wahmun. Is wahmun. So the fact that he can consider whether Salatul Dhuhr is mustahab or wajib, the fact that he considered it could be mustahab is what? Is a wahm. It's a mistake on his end. It is a mistake on his side. It is a wahm. وَإِن تَسَاوَى الْأَمْرَانِ. Lakin if both are exactly the same, he's not leaning towards any side, فَهُوَ شَكٌّ. It is a doubt. So you say to him, Salatul Dhuhr, is it wajib or mustahab? He says, Allahu A'lam, because there's evidences showing it is wajib, but then there are evidences showing it is not wajib. That is called what? Shak. He has a complete doubt. He has a doubt. Is that understood?
Yeah, the wajib and sunnah. If he does tarjih, that is sunnah, that's wahm.
If he believes it is sunnah, then that is wahm. That's a mistake from his side. But also the fact that he even thought that it could be sunnah is also a wahm.
So is the thought and the tarjih?
The fault and the tarjih, that's if he says it is sunnah. That is wahm. That's طيب. The Shaykh says, وَبِهَذَا. So you've understood that basically. You've understood. The Shaykh is now saying, وَبِهَذَا. He's going to now mention these as they are. Yeah? He's going to now mention these six points as they are. Like, we don't have time, so we're going to have to stop there and continue next week, inshallah. والله تعالى أعلم وأحكم بالله توفيق.